Hey Rock Hill, Pastor Kyle with your sermon recap for the week. We looked this week at Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 to 21. And the last few weeks in Ephesians, we've been looking at very clear commands of Scripture that living in light of the gospel means we put off the old man and we put on the new man. We walk out of the darkness and into the light. We say no to sexual immorality and greed. We are not defined by lying, but rather by telling the truth. We are not defined by thieving or stealing, but rather working honestly so that we can give generously to all. But what about the things in our life that don't necessarily have a verse, a clear command of Scripture attached to them? How do we make decisions about who to marry and where to live and what house to buy and what car to buy and all of those things that don't necessarily have a verse attached to them? Well, Scripture tells us that we're to exercise wisdom. We're not to live as unwise, but as wise, avoiding the foolishness of this world and rather aligning our values with the values of God and His kingdom. To do this, to discover the will of God, we need to know what He has already revealed to us. And so, basic framework for life is that we are to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. We are to love our neighbor as ourselves. We are to make disciples of Jesus that are in allegiance to His kingdom. And then we're to do what we want. I think God gives us a lot of freedom to choose this or this so long as we are doing the first things, the Great Commandment and the Great Commission. In addition to that, we are to be filled or controlled by the Spirit of God, not controlled by alcohol or drunkenness. Alcohol is a depressant that numbs our perception of reality that then makes us happy or emboldens us. The Spirit's work in our life is actually the opposite. It brings clarity so that we see life as it truly is. We see God as He truly is, and we see what He has done. And so it sharpens our awareness of reality and leads us to joy, not based on a numbing effect, but based on who He is and what He has done. And so a Spirit-filled life is actually characterized by three ways in our passage that we looked at. By spontaneous songs of praise just bursting forth from the heart, regular singing from the heart because music engages our emotions to not just know truths, but to find them beautiful. Second, that we are to be characterized by gratitude or thankfulness in all circumstances, not grumbling or complaining, but rather seeing God's hand and work and promises to us in all circumstances and situations. And finally, being filled with the Spirit is to be characterized by submitting our desires one to another out of reverence for Christ. And that's going to kind of take us the next chapter in Ephesians as we look at that in the context of marriage, in the context of parenting, and in the context of employer-employee relationships. And so my prayer for us as a church is that we would exercise wisdom and that we would be filled with the Spirit, that we would be characterized by spontaneous singing of praise of God, that we would be characterized by a spirit of gratitude in all things, and that we would be characterized by submitting our desires and preferences for each other out of reverence for Christ. Love you guys.